Askreddit, lawyers of Reddit, has a client ever made you go, how the fuck am I supposed to defend you? My client gave a textbook perfect confession to a robbery the police had no leads on. He had walked into the police station and told the front desk that he thought the cops were looking for him. He then volunteered that he and a friend robbed a gas station last week. Then, after police arrested and warned him, right to silence etc, and after he spoke at length with counsel, not me, he repeated his confession in an audio-video statement. He wasn't forced or coerced. He hadn't been detained for an unreasonable time in cells first. They hadn't even interrogated him. But as a result of his confession, they were able to get a DNA warrant and matched him to blood swabbed at the scene. And the best part? The police had no idea beforehand that it was him. My client and his friend had covered part of their faces. The surveillance video was horrible quality, and they had bear sprayed the store clerk, a 16-year-old kid, immediately upon entering, so the kid hadn't been able to provide the police with his description beyond 2 males, and since he had no criminal record, he wasn't in the DNA database from previous crimes. He had just heard a rumor that police were investigating, and assumed they knew it was him. I had to laugh when I got the police report and read all of this. I then focused on securing him as fair plea deal because he had no chance at an acquittal. I'm a criminal defense guy, so I have had plenty. Most infuriating one was a guy that got busted for selling rocks to a confidential informant. The CI was wired for sound and video, so the whole transaction is crystal clear. Plus the cop cited his car as the one that drove up the scene, and he was stopped a couple of hours later with the buy money in his possession. Serial numbers were recorded. He had 3 prior convictions for cocaine sales. The prosecutor offered him 5, which was the mandatory minimum. He absolutely declined to even consider a plea, insisted on a jury trial, insisted on taking the stand and telling a ridiculous story about how it wasn't him in the video. There wasn't any doubt. I felt like Lionel Hutz trying to string together a closing argument with a straight face. He got 20 years. I remember seeing an old episode of Dragnet dealing with the marijuana problem. In one scene, some smart-ass hippie kid is asking the 2 cops why they aren't allowed to smoke dope, but their parents are allowed to drink alcohol. Harry Morgan's character explained that people drink socially without getting full down drunk, but dope smokers only smoke with the intention of getting high, and you can't do anything useful to society while high. The hippie kid on the show seemed to accept that answer more than I did. In fact, years later, I still think about that scene, like, in the bank parking lot, as I'm hitting my THC vape pen while walking from my car to the building. Fuck you, Cole Potter. I'm gonna get high then do some banking. Is that useful enough to society for you?
I'm a paralegal, although I am in IT now, but previously I was in other areas. While in court, the case before us at the time was for theft and was going on much longer than it should have. Defense lawyer calls for a motion to dismiss, claiming lack of evidence. Judge says he will entertain said motion after lunch. Hit gavel says court will reconvene at 1 p.m. Court dismissed. Defendant stands up and says real loudly, "Told you I could get away with stealing that shit." He thought his case had been dismissed.
I had to try to defend a man who walked into a convenience store with a knife demanding money. He wore no masks, just his casual clothes, and walked through every aisle before he robbed it, being spotted by every security camera in the store. After the robbery he ran back to the hotel he was staying at, also carrying an open backpack full of money, being seen by the hotel's security cameras in the process. He then went into his room, threw the bag on the floor and hid under a bed until police arrived. I spent a long night thinking about it before passing the case to somebody else, because I have no idea how to defend someone who has so much evidence against them. I've told this story here before, but it's a good one. My friend's mom was a defense lawyer for a hospital. Her job was to represent doctors accused of malpractice or anything relating to doctor-patient interaction. I forget all of the details, but she had one case where a female patient had accused a male doctor of sexual assault. The claim was that the doctor groped the patient several times during a procedure. Allegedly, the doctor had been coached to say that during a routine procedure, it's possible that he had inadvertently brushed up against the patient's chest, and that if it happened, it was an unintentional consequence of following standard procedures. So they get to the deposition, and I guess the first question the doctor gets is something along the lines of, "Walk me through what happened," and the doctor says, "I don't know what you want me to say, man. I'm a tit guy, always have been." They settled. A guy I know got busted with a trunk full of 40-pound cocaine, several gallon-sized bags of pills, and $20K worth of meth. Feds had every phone call, text, audio, video, several witnesses and his own family members' statements. He thinks he is getting a year in prison because it's his first offense. He's just too coked up to see all the evidence against him. His trial is on hold because of the pandemic, but the courts are starting up cases again. We expect he will get 12 years minimum. He wants to have a kid with his girlfriend of 6 months before he goes to prison. I had a client come in and spin me this yarn about how he owed all these child support arrears and the payments are killing him, and could I file a petition to have the payment reduced. He spins this tale of his spouse alienating the children and that's why he never saw them. I filed the petition and the clerk called me aside one day and said I might want to review his actual divorce file, not just his child support file. That was a wild ride. Orders of protection due to stalking, losing his visitation due to meth use, not making a single child support payment in 14 years. I do the best I can until he admits on the stand that he smokes a carton a week and drinks over a liter a day. So that's over $200 a week in cigarettes and liquor, and a little weed sometimes. It did not go well. I was a baby attorney at the time and I could tell the judge wanted to tear me a new one for even filing this, but I was so beaten down by the end of the hearing that it would have been child abuse at that point. I had a client come in and spin me this yarn about how he owed all these child support arrears and the payments are killing him, and could I file a petition to have the payment reduced. He spins this tale of his spouse alienating the children and that's why he never saw them. I filed the petition and the clerk called me aside one day and said I might want to review his actual divorce file, not just his child support file. That was a wild ride. Orders of protection due to stalking, losing his visitation due to meth use, not making a single child support payment in 14 years. I do the best I can until he admits on the stand that he smokes a carton a week and drinks over a liter a day. So that's over $200 a week in cigarettes and liquor, and a little weed sometimes. It did not go well. I was a baby attorney at the time and I could tell the judge wanted to tear me a new one for even filing this, but I was so beaten down by the end of the hearing that it would have been child abuse at that point.
I have posted this here before. I'm not a lawyer. I read about this. 2 guys were being tried for robbing a gas station. A customer who saw the robbery was now on the witness stand. The prosecutor asked him to describe what he saw. The witness said that he saw 2 guys robbing the store and while running out, one of them bumped into him. Then the prosecutor turned towards the 2 defendants and asked, "Are those 2 men in the courtroom today?" At which point, the 2 idiots.
My lawyer father once had a client who was suing the federal government because he claimed his parents had sold him to the feds for testing as a child. The client claimed they had him constantly under surveillance. When asked how he knew who was watching him, the client said the government used minivans and station wagons, late 80s, and they were always parked outside his residence. The client lived in a motel in a resort town. I had a client come in for a DWI. She was about 40 and her mother came with her. She went into this story about her medications and how she wasn't drinking, and she was framed by her ex, that was the supervising sergeant of the officer who arrested her. There was some difficulty getting the video from the prosecutors, but eventually we got it. Up to that point she had insisted on a trial. I took her, without her mom, to watch the video. She was wasted, couldn't walk straight, clearly intoxicated. Admitted on the video she drank half a bottle of vodka before driving. I asked her if she thought we could convince the jury she wasn't intoxicated. She then agreed to take the reduction I had worked out for her. Thankfully the prosecutor hadn't watched the video yet. Her mother was furious with me. I told her it was the client's decision, not mine or the mom's. Client eventually reached out to thank me for not showing the video to her mom. Weird relationship.